There are two systems that we can use to describe language. The first has three domains, and those can be further subdivided into five components. The first domain is form or structure. This is going to be the building blocks of language. So the way that sounds can combine to create words, and words can combine to create sentences. We can subdivide form into three of the five components. Phonology, which is speech sounds. Morphology, which are the smallest unit of language that contain meaning. And syntax, which are the rules for combining words into sentences. An example of phonology would be if my husband and I went on a cruise and I left my bag on the ship, but I told him that I left it on the sip. He wouldn't know what I was talking about because that smallest unit of speech, that sh and s, changes the meaning of the word. For morphology, this is going to be where a unit of language that contains meaning can be added to a word to change the like how it functions in a sentence. So from a verb to a noun, and it can add grammatical information such as plural or past tense. If we take the word run and we put an at the end, uh, we go from a verb to a noun. And then if we add that S at the end, now we have more than one runner. Syntax is going to be just the rules for creating sentences. So for example, we're going to need a subject, a verb, and an object. That's one type of sentence. And it can get more complicated than that, and it can get less complicated than that. But just at a basis, to have a sentence, you need certain things, and they need to be in a certain order for this to make sense. The second domain is content. This is meaning. This correlates with the fourth language component, semantics, and it's going to include vocabulary and then the way that those vocabulary words get organized in your brain. An example would be if you have a child who's very interested in bugs and reads and looks at pictures of bugs and knows all of their names, and then in the summer can go out into the grass and look under rocks and can find all these bugs and is able to identify what they are based on that semantic knowledge that they've organized over time. The third domain is use, which is the social function of language. This correlates to our final language domain, pragmatics. So these are all of the social rules for language. The example that came to mind is a blurt jar in elementary school classrooms. So if you have a teacher who's encouraging students to raise their hands instead of blurting out or interrupting, and then there's incentives for if you remember the rule that it's not always your turn to talk and you can't always talk whenever you want to and say whatever you think. Like it has to be relevant. You have to pay attention, and then it's your turn to talk. So there's turn taking, and that's part of just learning the rules. You also have different registers, so just different ways of speaking. If you're with your friends versus if we are with your parents or you're with your teachers, you're gonna talk and respond to them differently, and that is all related to pragmatics. That is it. That was a lot. I'm out of breath. Thank you for listening, and please give me feedback.